This is my most recent acquisition, and when I saw it, because of the simplicity, I really had to have it. It's only a single tube Stirling engine, and it's got the flywheel, and on the back side it's got a little generator, which it doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's just for demonstrating that it produces power. But I've had this one for a very long time, and although they look very different, I'm going to argue that they're basically the same thing. Yeah, there's all sorts of these things that have different number of cylinders and so forth, but pretty much this one is sloshing air from a hot source to a cold place and back again, and just grabbing a little bit of heat, moving it to the top, grabbing a little bit of heat, moving it to the top. And in doing so, it changes the volume of the gas inside, and by changing the volume of the gas inside, this piston goes up and down. Either there's more pressure inside the chamber, which pushes this piston up, or there's less pressure and the atmosphere pushes this little cylinder down. Okay, so let's see how this one is doing basically the same thing. Well, this is the star of today's show, and let's talk about the differences between it and this rather different version that I've had for a very long time. This one requires a relatively high heat. It goes between the alcohol flame, which is over 1,000 degrees centigrade, to room temperature, and it crosses this piece of aluminum, which will extract a lot of heat from it. This one over here goes from hot water down here on the bottom up to room temperature, so call this 100 degrees centigrade, and this somewhere between 20 and 30 degrees centigrade. So that's a big difference, and it's also a major similarity, heat moving from high source to a lower quality source. Both of these things have a displacer. So this is called the displacer. I have a whole video on this. It sloshes the air up and down between the hot source and the cold source. So it just keeps moving air between hot and cold, hot and cold. And in doing so, it changes the volume inside here, because when air gets hot, it expands, and when it gets cold, it contracts, and that's the whole game. This is doing the same thing. So let's get even closer on this and see how it's doing that. In the other one, we saw that there was a dedicated piston that would slosh the air back and forth. In this model, this piston does both things. It sloshes the air back and forth, and it supplies the power. And let's talk about how it does that. First of all, we heat this side of the chamber, and it gets quite hot. The steel wool in there has two functions. It helps distribute the heat around inside the chamber, and it also keeps the air from just squirting directly in and going back out. It diffuses the air, it moves the air around there, randomizes it, if you will. Okay, so we have the heat, we heat this side, and what happens when we heat air? It expands, and as it expands, it's going to push this piston back like this, and I'm going the wrong way with it, it turns that way. So it's going to push the piston back like this. Now, the air rushes through this hole in here. You can see the hole right there next to my finger. The air rushes through there. This is aluminum. It's cold, relatively cold, compared to the flame of the alcohol burner. And it rushes through here. The air starts cooling off. It reaches this side, which is the cool side. And now it's as cool as it's going to get. It's going to hit that piston. It's going to hit this glass. It's gone through the aluminum. It's now at a lower temperature than this side. And what happens when you cool a gas? It contracts. So the piston is sucked in here. Or more correctly, the atmosphere presses on the backside of this piston and shoves that cool air back over to this side. This side, it gets hot. That air expands. It pushes the piston back like this. Piston moves back. Get the air in here gets cool again. And the whole cycle repeats. Now you may be asking, could I use another gas in here? Does it have to be air? Could it be Freon? Could it be something like that? And the answer is yes, it can. They do, in professional versions of this, they actually use other gases, and they use it in a sealed system. But yeah, that's it for this rather simplified version, where they have gone from two pistons doing the work, a slosher, a displacer is the correct term, a displacer piston and a power piston, and they have combined those both into this, and the sacrifice is that, again, this runs on temperatures of burning alcohol, whereas the other one will run on boiling water temperatures. Okay, well that's it for this new and rather interesting Stirling engine. Hope you found that useful in your home experimentations.